Hi, everybody. My name is Kevin Keegan. I'm the general manager of the oncology business at Illumina, and here we're the Illumina Genomics Forum. I'm delighted to introduce Danielle Hicks. She's the chief patient officer at GoTo Foundation, a lung cancer nonprofit organization. And we're super excited to have you here, Danielle, to talk to us about the voice of the patient advocacy organizations. Danielle, can you kind of introduce a little bit more broadly about not only who you are and how you ended there, but also what you do within the GoTo Foundation?
I absolutely love my job. We are a national and, well, not only national, but a global nonprofit organization focusing on the lung cancer community. But really my area of focus revolves around patient care, patient support, patient education, patient programs. So anything that has to do with patient touch is my area of responsibility.
Fantastic. Thanks, Danielle. And when you see technology, like what we talked about yesterday, the genomics roadmap, the genome era is here. How does that resonate with you and your outreach into your patient organizations?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think first and foremost, when we're talking about genomics and what that means to anybody, I really feel that there's a need for a general awareness, even before somebody's diagnosed with lung cancer or any other disease that is appropriate for genomic profiling. So a lot of the work that we do every day and that you guys are doing, I know, is to really help to educate the patient, not only the patient population, but really the healthcare provider population, the physicians that are out there treating these patients, to make sure that they understand what the right thing is to do at the right time in order to get the right drug to the patient at the right time.
When you think about, you use the term education with respect to patients, where does the real responsibility or accountability for building that education story for patients? Or is it a collective and partnership across all of these key stakeholders?
I think it's a collective, and I think it's a partnership. I have conversations with my pharmaceutical colleagues all the time, and I know they try to do a really great job on educating patient populations on the importance of biomarker or genomic testing. Sadly, when a patient's diagnosed, they don't understand what their disease is to start with, right? They're terrified, they're scared, they don't know where to turn or where to go. When they are prescribed a therapy, they don't know the name of the drug, let alone who made the drug. So as much as I appreciate pharma's attempt to educate this population, it's sort of a long shot to assume that a patient will find its way to an industry partner for this type of education.
Right, and we talked a little bit. I'll maybe a little bit connected, but different. We talked a lot about equity as well for patients, an equitable distribution of access across all patient types. We're talking about places like Billings, Montana, but also the rest of the world. How can we do that?
I think in order to truly create that type of health equity, you need to go where the patients are. And roughly 20% of the patients are in those large academic centers, whether they're here in the US or outside of the US. But 80% of the patients are in more of those rural community settings. So I think one of the first things we need to do is be able to come up with a plan to keep the treating physicians educated and updated on what's happening right now. So I really feel like it's unfair for a general oncologist, particularly in the more rural setting, to know everything there is to know about every cancer that walks in the door, whether it's solid tumor or blood. It's just, it's not fair and quite frankly impossible. So how can we use technology to help these treating physicians, plug something in and come up with here's the best plan for my patient.
Yeah, it's a great point. And even harder is keeping up with all the clinical trial information, much of which is driven by, genomic biomarkers. How can we also link that sort of data into clinical trials so that we can create access for community-based patients?
Sort of a two-pronged question. One, I think one of the challenges when it comes to clinical trials is the majority of clinical trials happen in 2 or 3 handfuls of states, right? So access as a general rule for all the people in between those states is really, really challenging. Quite often, treating physicians in those in-between states aren't aware of a clinical trial that's happening 2 hours down the road. At GoTo, we do have clinical trial navigators. And we always have these conversations with patients. Have this conversation with your treating physician about clinical trials, when and if it might be a good time for you to consider. And our navigators can help kind of. Clinicaltrials.gov is not an easy not an easy website for patients or some treating physicians for that matter to navigate. So we're able to help them with that. We also have a community center of excellence network, and it's a designation-based network where whether it's screening and early detection, research, biomarkers, survivorship, there's about 9 or 10 different designations that folks can apply for and qualify for. And within that, this research piece is really, really important, because if we can get these trials into these centers where the patients are, it's a win-win for everyone.
Right. I think the next question for you is, you focus on lung cancer. Mm-hmm. For us in the genomics industry, we talk about lung cancer a lot because there's all kinds of biomarker content in the guidelines that are actionable for lung cancer patients, and yet it's a devastating condition for patients. How do we continue to stay on top of that, but make it digestible for both the oncologist and for the patient?
I think. Again, one of the things that GoTo has developed is this shared learning platform within our Center of Excellence network. And I should say it's about 900 centers around the country, which, isn't all of them, but it's a lot of them, right? And within that network, there is an exchange which is generated especially for this shared learning, where, something that's happening in Billings, Montana, they can go into this exchange and say, hey, I have this patient that X, right? And then somebody, from, I don't know, somewhere in Texas can say, oh, here's what we're doing. So, I think that those shared learning opportunities, I think, are huge. Creating those exchanges. Academic centers do them all the time, right? With their tumor boards, they're talking about patients and they're having these conversations about what the best next step is. Right. So things like that, and creating virtual tumor boards, which I know exist, but they don't exist enough. And if they do, people don't know about them.
Danielle, you just referenced that you have roughly 900 centers that work with GoTo. What do those centers look like, and how does the interface with GoTo?
They vary. They vary from large community cancer centers to sort of these standalone screening centers. So they really run the gamut.
And how do they tap into you?
So we've done, I think, a great job of going out there and boots on the ground, coming to conferences like this, meeting people who we know are, in our case, interested in lung cancer, start having those conversations, start talking about this.
Got it. You told me the story earlier, and I won't disclose names or anything, but you mentioned this relationship, a very intimate, familial relationship with these folks that through your work. How do you manage that intensity?
Yeah, I would say most, not all. Everybody wants to connect on different levels, right? Some people just want the information and then they're good. Other people need a little more hand-holding. And one of the programs that I oversee is our Lung Cancer Living Room, and it's a program where we bring in key opinion leaders across the lung cancer continuum, beginning with really diagnostics. We've had diagnostic companies come in. Pre-COVID, it was a live audience, 60, 80 people in the room, and then we live streamed. So we were really ready to pivot once COVID hit to virtual only. But a lot of folks find out about that word of mouth, believe it or not, from their healthcare providers. There have been thousands of patients whose hand I've felt blessed to kind of hold and guide along the way, and not just patients, but their families and their caregivers and their loved ones. I think it's an important part of the journey, is being there.
It's such an incredible, and when you talk about it,
it made me tear up every time.
But it's just it's a special thing that you and your organization do for patients. All right, you may have seen a version of this earlier in this week, so I'll do this with you. We're
Yeah.
going to do a lightning round with you, Dan.
Oh boy.
You okay?
I'm good.
All right. Lung cancer in 10 years is?
In 10 years, so right now, early detection is king. I mean, with all cancers, we know it is. And within the next 10, I mean, right now, we have screening for lung cancer, and 4% of the people that qualify are actually utilizing that screening. So within 10 years, I would like to see, I mean, I want to say 100%, but at least 80% of the people that qualify. Hopefully the criteria opens up and we get more people diagnosed early. But really, I would say early detection is going to be a game changer for lung cancer.
Precision medicine in lung cancer.
Precision medicine in lung cancer. 10 years from now, I would like to see every patient have upfront, comprehensive biomarker testing and get the right drug at the right time.
Love it. What's next for GoTo?
We have a sister organization, if you will, and it's called the Adario Lung Cancer Medical Institute, and it's a research consortium, so some of it biomarker-driven research, which is really exciting. We've got a ton of new caregiver. We're extending some of our support services out into the caregiver community because we recognize the importance of that. We're gap fillers, right? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel or do things that other people are already doing really well. So we've done a lot of work this last year digging deep into health equity and the diversity and how we can really better understand that and make our mark in some of these, smaller sort of communities.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Your favorite learning from the IGF?
Every time I come to a conference like this and see the excitement and the energy and the passion and the compassion around doing better, it gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. It really does. It's not any one organization, not any one company is going to do this alone. So to see everybody pull together is really, I think, what makes me most excited.
The most important question, what do you want us to know from you or to take away from the IGF?
I want you guys to know that you play a wildly important role in this process, and bringing the patient voice to the process. You can't do it without the patient voice. I mean, you really can't. Nobody understands exactly what that journey looks like except the patient. So I'm so grateful that you had me here today on behalf of the patient. Maybe next year we'll have a patient come with me to actually share their story, and that would be fantastic.
Well, I have to say, your words are powerful. They're needed. We can't thank you enough for sharing your voice and your what you do in the community. Danielle Hicks, Chief Patient Officer at GoTo Foundation. Can't thank you enough. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much, Danielle.
My pleasure. Thank you.